Rain hammered the alley like thrown nails. Ellie Wellington ran hard, breath clipped, shoes slapping puddles that caught the neon and shattered it. Behind her, footsteps chased, steady as a metronome. If he caught her, it ended here. If he didn't, the game got meaner. She glanced left at a metal door, kicked it open, and slipped into a narrow storage bay that smelled like oil and cold iron. She threw a bolt and leaned her back against it, counting down the beats of her own heart. A kitten hissed from under a crate. Ellie crouched, a hand steady in the dark. "Easy, little one," Ellie said. She snapped a pretzel from her pocket, slid it under the crate, and watched the tiny shape move toward it. Boots scuffed outside, the bolt trembled. Ellie raised her head, eyes on the narrow gap near the hinge. She moved fast. She crossed the room, dragged a broken pallet behind a stack of drums to set a false shadow. She slid along the wall and crouched by the far door. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. The screen flashed a blocked number and a message. Debts don't disappear. 4 photos loaded slow in the weak signal. One showed a young Ellie in a tunnel lit by flashlights, shoulder to shoulder with a man whose face was crossed out. Another showed a dead-eyed victim from a case that never closed. The third showed a key she had hidden 12 years ago. The fourth was a fresh picture of Ellie taken through a window 1 hour ago. Ellie's stomach knotted. The dates in the file names were precise. He knew more than the police had bothered to learn. He knew what the case file never understood. He knew where the old blood had leaked into the street. The bolt rattled again. A voice outside exhaled a laugh. "Tick, tick," the voice said, low enough that it might have been the rain. Ellie moved to the back door, felt the chain, saw the padlock hanging open as if an invitation. She checked the room, 2 exits, 1 hunter, 1 hunted. He wanted her to choose wrong. She slid the padlock through the hasp, but didn't click it. She lifted a pipe from the wall and braced it behind a stack of tires, building a quiet catch. She checked the window, thin and greasy. She pressed a cloth against it to deaden the sound and broke it with a gentle push. The kitten hissed again. "You're not the only one scared," Ellie said. The bolt wrenched. The door bumped. Ellie slipped through the window to a loading dock and rolled to a crouch. The rain soaked everything. She kept low and crossed to a shadow beneath a vending machine that flickered like a dying star. She watched the door. It opened and light spilled onto the wet concrete. A silhouette filled the frame, just a shape, no face. The figure paused as if smelling the space. The pallet cast a false shoulder, the drums a false spine. The shape stepped in. The door swung, the bolt slid, the wind shut him in. Ellie moved along the wall, counted 3 beats, and eased toward the alley. The phone buzzed again. A new message appeared. The text said, "The past is a straight line, not a circle. See you at the end of it." Ellie zoomed the fresh photo. It was taken from the sidewalk outside her safe house across town, where she kept case files no one should have. He had been close enough to breathe her air. Ellie reached a rusted gate, climbed, and dropped to the far side. Her hands were raw and slick with rain and old brick dust. The alley opened onto a side street where a city bus hissed and rolled past. Red and blue lights on the bus ad showed a smile that pretended nothing ever ended badly. She ducked into a narrow storefront with a sign that read, "Auto Glass, Closed." The side door had a keypad. She punched it and stepped into a 1-room safe house she had rented under a dead woman's name years ago. A thin cot, a folding table, a duffel with a change of clothes. She stripped out of the soaked jacket and wrapped a towel around her shoulders. The fluorescent light buzzed. The air smelled like lemon cleaner and rust. She set the phone on the table and opened an old metal file box, flipping past tabbed folders that still smelled like smoke from a fire that should have killed all of this. Photocopies of old evidence, handwritten names, a ledger of debts and favors. She found the key from the 3rd photo, a brass blank with a triangular notch she had filed by hand. She put it in her pocket. The clock on the wall ticked loud as knuckles on a door. "Enough," Ellie said to the room. She opened a laptop that had never seen her name. An encrypted message waited in a burner inbox, sent an hour ago. 1 line. "You should have died under the bridge." Another line appeared as she watched. You will die when I decide. She typed a reply with steady fingers. You think I'm running. I'm not. She hit send. Every choice from here could get people killed. If she kept moving, he would follow until someone ran out of breath. If she stood and fought, he would make the stage and own the lights. The police would call it a string of crimes without motive and send a press release. The system had already filed her under too complicated. She would have to make the next steps herself. She checked the duffel, palmed a compact pistol, slid extra rounds into a pocket. The towel fell away. She pulled on a dry shirt and stepped back to the window. The rain made curtains on the glass. Footsteps moved outside, soft, measured. A shadow crossed the streaked pane. This isn't the end, Ellie said. Her voice was calm and certain and quiet. The door handle turned. The deadbolt clicked. A figure loomed in the frame, shaped by the thin light, tall, shoulders squared, the boundary between hunter and prey a breath-thin line. Morning came without warmth. Ellie sat in a corner booth of a dim cafe off Sunset, the room smelling of coffee and old vinyl. Michael Adams slid into the seat across from her, a retired detective with eyes that missed little and a jaw that never learned to relax. He looked at her hands, at the small streak of dried blood on her knuckle. You picked up a hobby since we last talked, Michael said. I picked up a tail, Ellie said. Michael studied the street through the window. You got my text? I got his, Ellie said. She slid the phone across the table and tapped the photos. He knows about the tunnel. He knows about the old case. He knows where I keep my ghosts. Michael took a slow breath. Ellie, these clues run deeper than we ever imagined, Michael said. What you were in back then, who you angered, it never died. Maybe someone decided it's debt collection season. Someone decided I needed to be erased, Ellie said. He calls himself a hunter. He likes theater. A waitress poured coffee and moved on. Ellie watched the door. The cafe was a mix of workers without time and artists without income. Outside, the rain had slowed to a spit. A siren whooped and faded. Michael leaned in. I can make a call. Quiet. There's a friend in major crimes who owes me one. The police never found the tunnel, Ellie said. They lost the victim's file in a move across town. They wrote her down as a statistic and then as a memory. This guy knows better. He's telling me he was there. Michael's eyes ticked to the photos. Or he has access, Michael said, to files no one is supposed to see. Ellie's phone vibrated again. A new message from Veronica Cole, investigative journalist, part friend and part relentless conscience. The text read, Found something. Meet afternoon. Ellie typed back fast. Send me a taste. Veronica sent a scan of a municipal storage log with a red set of initials in the margin. The notation had a name Ellie didn't want to read and a street address she knew by heart from 20 years ago. Ellie slid the phone to Michael. He's pulling from storage no one decent would touch. Michael frowned. Veronica needs to be careful, Michael said. She stirs nests until the wasps ride with her. She knows. She does it anyway, Ellie said. Like me. Michael touched the rim of his cup. What's the plan? Plan is to stop being bait, Ellie said. Plan is to turn him inside out. Careful what you pull, Michael said. Sometimes the wire is attached to something you loved. Ellie watched his face. You're talking like you know the wire. Michael's jaw tightened. I know the city. It likes secrets. Ellie left first and walked the block to a public records office that had a coffee stand in front and a security guard who didn't mind sleeping. In an alcove shadow, Veronica waited with a satchel over one shoulder and a grin that hid worry. You look like you danced with lightning, Veronica said. It stepped on my toes, Ellie said. Veronica pulled a folder from the satchel. I dug through 2 decades of storage mistakes, off-book transfers, boxes with no barcodes. Someone moved a case file from homicide to a city warehouse and marked it with a private tag. The tag is on a list used by a handful of retired cops and 1 or 2 private operators. Give me a name, Ellie said. Veronica hesitated. Give me a minute, Veronica said. She pulled out a letter from the folder, sealed, age yellowed at the edges. This was unopened when I found it in a box that should have contained inventory forms. It was addressed to you, no stamp, just an initial in the corner, M. Ellie stared at the letter. The seal had an old smear like a thumb pressed into wax. She broke it and slid the paper out. The letter was short. It read, "I could have told you. I should have. We built a lie to keep you breathing. When this finds you, know the cost." The bottom line had no name, just the same initial. Veronica watched Ellie's face. "You okay?" Veronica said. "The hunter isn't alone," Ellie said. "Someone close helped build the stage." "Is it Michael?" Veronica said. Ellie folded the letter and slid it into her pocket. "Trust is currency and I'm broke," Ellie said. Veronica put a hand on Ellie's shoulder. "We can triangulate the storage log and the photos," Veronica said. "We can pin down who touched what and when." "Do it," Ellie said. Across town at dusk, Ellie met Michael again on a bench outside an old church where they had once shared a drink after a case went bad. He stared at the stained glass and then at her. She held his gaze. "He knows me too well," Ellie said. "He knows what you used to be," Michael said. "Do you?" Ellie said. Michael's mouth thinned. "Ellie, we don't have time for old sins. We have a hunter to flush." Ellie took the letter from her pocket and held it out. Michael didn't reach for it. He watched it like it might burn. "We cleaned a case to save a life," Michael said finally. "Sometimes that means a lie." The bells tolled the hour. A car idled at the curb, unknown driver, windows too dark. Ellie slid the letter back into her pocket and stood. The first light of the street lamps washed the sidewalk in pale orange. Somewhere a door slammed and the sound ran along the street like a warning. Ellie walked away into the growing night, the letter a heat on her thigh. Behind her, the car pulled out. The driver wore a cap low and didn't look at her. The city felt like a mouth about to close. In the morning, Veronica texted again. The message read, "We have a hit." A tag links to a private locker under an alias tied to someone too close. Ellie stopped in the shade of a bus shelter and opened the attached image, a rental agreement, a familiar address, a signature she knew. The ink scrawled like a habit. The letter in her pocket burned, and the edge of betrayal cut fresh as a blade. Ellie moved like a shadow through the abandoned wing of a warehouse by the river, a place where the city stored what it wanted to forget. Concrete pillars dripped, old graffiti faded into fresh layers. A trusted informant waited. Gabe Morales, who once ran stolen parts through chop shops and now traded in secrets to balance a ledger only he could see. "You look tired," Gabe said. "I look alive," Ellie said. Gabe reached into a canvas bag and pulled out a folder tied with string. "This costs goodwill," Gabe said. "It lives in the gray spaces. Circuitry you don't see until it lights you up." Ellie took the folder and flipped it open. Photocopies of bank wires, a slush fund labeled with an innocuous corporate name, Staghorn Consulting. She tapped a line with her finger. "That name is a message," Ellie said. "The hunter's tag is a stag. He isn't shy about his mythology." Gabe pointed to a page. "That account got fed by another, one with a benefactor using a proxy. The proxy rented a locker you probably know." "Unit B12, Ellie said. Gabe nodded. "Holloway Storage on Alameda. The lease was paid with cashier's checks drawn in small stacks. Routine. Quiet." Ellie turned the next page and froze. A photocopy of a signature stared up. Not the full name. Just the sweep of an A and the sharp hook of a D. It was enough. Gabe watched her. "You know the hand," Gabe said. "I know the hand," Ellie said. A footstep echoed in the shadows. Michael stepped from the dark aisle between crates, his face drawn tight, his eyes not surprised to see Gabe. He looked at the folder in Ellie's hands and then at her. "You should have called me first," Michael said. "You should have told me first," Ellie said. Gabe held out his hands, palms up. "I'm a delivery service," Gabe said. "Don't shoot the van." Michael moved closer, hands open, pacifying. "Ellie, you never understood the role I had to play," Michael said. "You were marked a long time ago. I pushed the storm so it wouldn't hit you head on." "You funded it," Ellie said. "You fed the hunter." Michael flinched. "I redirected him," Michael said. "I gave him bones to chew so he wouldn't find your throat." "You turned my life into bait," Ellie said. "You designed a maze and walked me through it with a pat on the shoulder." Michael's voice fell to a strained whisper. "You were already in the maze. I put a light at the exit." A thud sounded in the far corner. Lights flashed and died. From somewhere above, a voice carried through the metal ribs of the warehouse, smooth and cold. "You do my work for me," the hunter said. "You confess for free." Gabe swore under his breath. Ellie drew her pistol and edged toward the stack of crates. Michael lifted his hands higher. "Stay where I can see you," Ellie said. "Ellie," Michael said, "he wants the fury to turn at me. He wants you to think I'm his puppet master. He wants the story to end with you pulling the trigger on the wrong man." Ellie listened past his words to the scrape of a shoe on a catwalk overhead. The hunter moved like he knew the place better than anyone in it. A small cylinder dropped from the dark, rolled, and stopped at Michael's feet. Smoke bloomed without heat. Gabe coughed and swayed. "Move," Ellie said. They staggered behind a line of crates as the smoke thickened. A door slammed. The air cleared. Michael was gone. "Of course," Gabe said. Ellie knelt where Michael had stood. Something small lay on the concrete. She picked it up. A key card with a worn sticker that read, Holloway B12, exactly the locker they had named. On the back, in permanent ink, a symbol of antlers drawn with a single stroke. Gabe rubbed his eyes. "That's a stake in your heart," Gabe said. "It's a breadcrumb," Ellie said. "You gonna follow it?" Gabe said. "I'm gonna set it on fire and see who comes running," Ellie said. She left the warehouse with the key card in her pocket and a weight in her chest that felt like the old days, cutting a new groove. She called Veronica, voice low. "I have a key," Ellie said. "What does it open?" Veronica said. "A locker the hunter uses, paid for by someone who signs with an A and a hook," Ellie said. "Michael," Veronica said, "point me at the truth, not at your feelings," Ellie said. "You want truth," Veronica said. "We need to open that locker without tipping him." "We do the opposite," Ellie said. "We tip him loud. We make noise and set a trap so when he steps to protect what's inside, he walks where I want him." "Every choice tonight could cost us dearly," Veronica said. "Then let's spend big," Ellie said. She sent an anonymous tip from a public computer to a list of addresses she knew the hunter watched. Police Dispatch, a neighborhood app, an account that had shadowed her for months. Locker B12, Holloway storage, suspicious activity, pictures attached. She uploaded a blurry shot of the key card and a fake photo of a hand reaching into a locker. Her phone vibrated. A new message from the hunter arrived. "Bold move," it said. He added an address for a different storage facility with a time attached, a perfect misdirect. "He's trying to split us," Ellie said to Veronica. "Then we make him think it worked," Veronica said. Ellie smiled without warmth. She packed a small bag with trip lines, battery lanterns, a pocket recorder, and a pair of handcuffs that had belonged to no police officer. She looked at the city map on the wall and drew a line from the storage facility to an alley network she knew, like a second skin. The game moved to terrain where she chose the corners. She headed into the dark with Veronica at her side and the key card burning like a brand in her pocket. Behind them, the questions multiplied and the ground under their feet began to tilt. The alley network stitched through the garment district like capillaries. Ellie and Veronica moved fast, placing what they needed: a trip line at shin height between a dumpster and a post, a motion light wired to a battery box, a sliver of mirror at an angle to watch turns. The plan was simple. Make noise at Holloway B12, draw the hunter to protect his cache, then choke the alleys down to one choice and own that single line. Veronica checked her watch. "We have 15 minutes until the false tip hits the scanner," Veronica said. "We only need 5, Ellie said. They moved. A bodega owner named Luis poked his head out and eyed the line across his back door. "This is trouble," Luis said. "It's insurance," Ellie said. She handed him a 20 and a look. "If anyone runs this corner, you pull that crate over and block it. If he points a gun, duck and swear you don't know English." Luis nodded. "People always think I don't," Luis said. "It's my superpower." The city hummed. Distant sirens moaned as if the whole place breathed bad air. Ellie crouched at a junction where 3 alleys met. She held the key card up and took a photo, sent it to the burner address she used for the hunter. Then she tossed the card into a puddle where it would catch the light. Veronica watched her. "You sure you want to show him your hand?" Veronica said. "He already thinks he knows my cards," Ellie said. "I want him arrogant." They set the final piece, a small speaker hidden behind a trash barrel with a looped recording of footsteps to create the illusion of movement where there was none. Ellie checked her pistol, clipped the recorder on her belt, and pulled a hood low against the drizzle that had returned like a rumor. "Every choice tonight could cost us dearly," Veronica said again, softer now. "So will doing nothing," Ellie said. The scanner channel on Veronica's phone chirped. A call came over about suspicious activity at Holloway Storage. Ellie pictured unmarked cars rolling slow, lights off, uniforms thinking about overtime. It would pull the hunter like gravity. The streetlights blinked and went dark. The sound of the city dropped a note as if a finger had pressed a key. Ellie looked up. The power grid in a 3-block radius died quietly, plunging everything into a softer black. Only the glow from distant towers painting edges. "That's not us," Veronica said. "It's him," Ellie said. A voice slid along the alley, amplified by the walls, intimate in the wrong way. It was calm and clipped, a man who had learned to smile without moving his mouth. "You light a candle," the hunter said. "I bring night." Ellie motioned Veronica behind a dumpster and stepped into the center of the junction. "You came to save your toys," Ellie said. "You came to learn what it costs to owe the wrong people," the hunter said. "You watch from the rafters and call it justice," Ellie said. "I call it balance," the hunter said. Footsteps scraped to the left, then from the right, the duplicates from the hidden speaker and the real thing mixing like a magician's patter. A small red dot danced on the ground by Ellie's foot and then slid up the dumpster to settle on Veronica's shoulder. "Step out," the hunter said. "Both of you." Veronica's breath caught. "He has a bead on me," Veronica said. "He thinks he does," Ellie said. Ellie stepped into the open and let her weight find the trip line she knew was there. She went down hard on purpose, a sloppy sprawl that sent her pistol skittering under the crate Luis had half pulled. The red dot swung to follow. Veronica slipped to the side and vanished into a doorway they had left unmarked. "Old," the hunter said. "Tired," Ellie laughed once. "I'm still here," Ellie said. A figure moved at the far end of the alley, a silhouette inside a bulk of coat, head covered, posture loose and patient. He took 2 slow steps closer. The motion light should have snapped on, but the grid was dead and the battery box too. The speaker's loop faded as its own battery died, the last footstep echoing like an insult. "You tossed away your key," the hunter said. "You never opened the right door." "I opened this one," Ellie said. A second voice slid out of the dark, low, familiar, edged with regret. Michael spoke from somewhere beyond the corner, his words bending through brick and shadow. "Stop it," Michael said. "Don't give him what he wants." The hunter chuckled. "You always were the best kind of liar," the hunter said. "You lied to yourself first," Veronica whispered from the doorway. "Ellie, we're blown," Veronica said. "He cut us off." Ellie's hands pressed the damp concrete. She felt the rough grit under her palm and the strength left in her arms. The hunter took another step. His presence filled the space like a cold front. "I decide when this ends," the hunter said. "You should have died under the bridge." His shadow swallowed hers. His breath was steady, his shape too sure, his voice a taunt that said he was always one step ahead and that Michael's whereabouts were still a blade aimed at Ellie's spine. The abandoned textile mill loomed by the rail yard like a ship run aground. Ellie had picked it for the end because she knew its bones. She had worked a side job here once, when the machine still hummed. Now the frames rusted and the windows were broken teeth. She sent a message an hour earlier from a fresh burner. "Storage compromised. Files will go public by dawn." She attached a photo of the ledger and the key card and sent it to the address the hunter watched, and another she knew would land in Michael's inbox whether he wanted it or not. Inside the mill, the air held the ghost of damp cotton. Ellie moved through rows of dead looms and placed small markers, chalk lines, and a wire threaded through a pulley high above the main floor. She kept the lights off. She tracked his likely approach. She left a door cracked on purpose. She breathed in and out until her heart found its timing. Footsteps approached without hurry. The hunter stepped into the main floor, tall and lean, coat open, gloved hands empty but not. A faint smile traced his mouth. He stood where she had chalked the floor and looked up into the rafters without moving his head. "This is your idea of a stage," the hunter said. "This is where stories begin and end," Ellie said. He tilted his head. "All that noise in the alleys," the hunter said. "You still make a good decoy." Ellie kept her distance and her voice steady. "You want the ledger," Ellie said. "You want the names." "I want the feeling," the hunter said, "of making the machine do what it should. You and I both know the law is too slow, too tame. People pay for an outcome. I supply it." "You supply nearly dead women in alleys," Ellie said. "They were not innocent," the hunter said. "Neither am I," Ellie said. He stepped closer. "Michael thought he could harness a storm," the hunter said. "Michael set this in motion. We were merely pieces in his larger design. He fed me your scent to distract me from men who had done worse. He laundered guilt and called it strategy." Ellie felt the sentence settle in the air. He wanted her to fire on the wrong target. He wanted to divide her from the only ally who had ever sat with her at 3 a.m. when the night rattled her bones. But Michael had signed a lease for B12. He had moved files with an initial like a small scar. He had crossed lines and then drawn them back into the sand. "What did he promise you?" Ellie said. "A seat at the table when the dirty ledger got rewritten," the hunter said. Ellie nodded once. She had strung the wire through the pulley and attached it to a weighted platform built of scrap and 2 counterweights on a line, a crude but effective trap. She kept her hands easy. She took 1/2 step back and let her heel find the lever she had built from a broken loom arm. "Tell me about the bridge," Ellie said. "The night I should have shot you and didn't," the hunter said. "You crawled into the dark, and he begged me to let you live. He said you could still be useful." Ellie felt the last piece click. She pressed her heel down. The counterweight dropped. A rusted gate crashed down behind the hunter, cutting off the exit. He moved to dodge, and the second weight swung, a metal beam arcing low to take his legs. He stumbled. Ellie stepped in and kicked his ankle hard. He went down on a knee. She brought the cuffs up and snapped one on his wrist with a speed that came from years of wanting to be faster. He twisted and threw a shoulder into her chest. She slammed into a loom, breath emptied. He rolled and came up with a knife that had been buried along his spine. The blade flicked at her, a quick silver line. She felt it in her ribs, shallow but hot. She grabbed a hunk of fabric from the floor and whipped it at his face, blinding him for a beat. She drove her elbow into his jaw. Bone met bone. He went slack for a half second. She looped the fabric over his knife hand and yanked down. He grunted and the knife clanged to the concrete. "You think this earns you grace," the hunter said. "You think capturing me cleans your ledger." "I think it ends you," Ellie said. He surged again, but his cuffed wrist pulled him wide. She stepped in and locked the second cuff, twisting his shoulder until he had to choose between pain and pride. He chose pain, and then pain chose him back. He collapsed to the floor and breathed hard, eyes on her like he was memorizing the face that beat him. Ellie stepped away, ribs burning, and pulled her phone from her pocket. She hit send on a message threaded to Veronica. "Publish everything. Names, numbers, the ledger, the note. Do it now." She added a line. "I won't run." She knew what it meant. The files tied her to an old job she had never fully admitted to, a favor traded for a life that now bled into this night. She had just set fire to any chance she had to tuck the past into a quiet box and find a softer path back to the people she had lost. That door shut with a dull thud in her mind. The hunter laughed once, thin. "He will burn too," the hunter said. "Michael will go down with me." "He made his choices," Ellie said. Sirens grew from the distance, slow at first and then certain. The gates of the mill threw back the sound like an old drum. Ellie stood over the hunter, chest aching, eyes on the doorway where shadows moved like thought. She heard a footstep and turned. Michael emerged from a side corridor, palms up, older than an hour ago. "You should have arrested him sooner," Ellie said. "I should have told you sooner," Michael said. Veronica's voice came through the speaker on Ellie's phone, breathless and charged. "It's up," Veronica said. "The ledger is live. Names, dates, transfers. Internal Affairs is on it. Phones are melting. You just blew a wall open." Ellie looked at Michael. "They will call you," Ellie said. "They already did," Michael said, "and I'm going to answer." Police poured into the mill, flashlights jittering, commands barked. The hunter watched it all like a bored god and smiled when they finally lifted him to his feet. He leaned close as they did and found Ellie's ear. "Everyone will pick a side," the hunter said. "You taught them how?" They dragged him away. Michael stood to the side and did not flinch when a detective cuffed him lightly and read him the first of several rights. He looked at Ellie as if measuring the distance between them, then nodded once and let himself be led. Outside, the dawn scratched at the horizon. Veronica slid under the crime scene tape and reached Ellie. She put a hand on Ellie's arm. "This changes things," Veronica said. "It should," Ellie said. They watched the squad cars roll and the mill shrink in their frames. The city stirred, phones chimed, news alerts rose like a flock. The ledger would ripple through offices and living rooms and kitchens, shaking beliefs and rattling uniforms. Blocks would whisper, some would stand taller, some would crouch lower. Ellie exhaled and looked at the pale sky. "We built a kind of justice out of broken parts," Ellie said. Veronica squeezed her arm. "Sometimes that's all we have," Veronica said. A reporter shouted a question from behind the tape and a neighbor muttered about trash and sirens and the price of rent. Ellie closed her eyes for a beat and opened them to the new day. The sirens faded. The dust settled. The ledger lived in the open. The hunter was on his way to a cell. Michael was on his way to a different kind of cell. The system had been kicked. Whether it woke up or rolled over would depend on more than one woman and one night. Ellie stood in the thin light, the past and the present lined up like silhouettes, and asked herself the question the night had left on her tongue. If justice is built on lies and betrayal, can it ever stand without someone else falling?